Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, comrades and friends, my name is Dr. Phillips, and Mamdani is now putting 100,000 young New Yorkers to work, and we're going to talk to you about what the headlines leave out here. So a few things a little bit more revealing in American politics than watching people become furious when government pays a teenager to perform actual work. I mean, I remember talking to a friend, and they were just foaming at the mouth that people actually had the ability to shovel snow in New York. I mean, they were actually losing it. And meanwhile, this is the same type of person who's going to go around and start berating, people for not finding work. And so if the government provides work, bad. But if they get work anywhere else, good, I guess. It makes no sense to me. But what I can tell you here is, if they gave billions of dollars to, say, a defense contractor, whose project is maybe 6 years late, and everybody adjusts their tie, and they call it national security here, and maybe we go bomb some children in foreign nations as well. Then all of a sudden that's a good thing. Allow some multinational corporation to maybe negotiate some tax package or some tax abatements here for the next, 85 years. That sounds like a great thing. We could finance some small moon landings with that, but instead let's give it to, gigantic corporations here so that people like Elon Musk and Bezos can make a little bit more money on their shares that they have. But if you were to give a 17-year-old a job at, say, a library, a hospital, community center, a small business, and then suddenly half of the country, they're like accountants here, and they're like, absolutely not. I would rather die than spend a single cent giving it to helping our community. Makes no sense to me here, but people are going to say, well, where is the money coming from? And, what precisely is the return on investment? And, has this child produced sufficient shareholder value? All valid questions here. Thank you, Milton Friedman. But, we are essentially, in a position whereby, people are upset and they're mad. And for the life of me, I cannot understand why. Where's the money coming from? Well, if you actually spent 2 seconds doing research, half the programs that this guy has done this year actually save us money in the long term, because people can actually have some form of benefit from their community. And even if they don't, sometimes it's just the right thing to do. Let me give you a good example here. Recently, he did every single child in New York gets lunch. Right. And just no matter who you are, regardless of your income, you get free lunch, right, when you go to these New York schools. And I was thinking, that's such a great policy. I've always been in favor of that. Instead of having kids in one of the richest countries on the planet graduate with lunch debt, for example, to where they can't even get a diploma. And, how about, we just feed them? I know that's such a radical statement, right? And if you look at the numbers, it's actually so cheap. It was about 0.4% of our budget for the federal government, right? That doesn't even include, right, the states, and so it's ridiculous. It's crazy. But if you say that, then somehow you are the problem. And so, I don't know, call me crazy, but I think that there's something wrong with what we're doing currently. I think states can pitch in, I think localities can pitch in, I think the federal government can pitch in here, but, that percentage is so small. We're not even talking about a fraction of a percent. Maybe we should be doing some more programs like this. I'm just saying, call me crazy. But, before the people start going absolutely crazy here and saying, okay, well, you're providing these experiences to 100,000 young New Yorkers. Again, how about we say that a little bit slow, a little bit back? Say, well, that's 100,000 people who are now getting some form of employment, getting some form of experience. Everybody wants the young kids to be a little bit experienced when they go into the workforce. And who knows, maybe this will be applicable, maybe it won't be. But, teaches them responsibility, helps get them a little bit of money. I don't see anything wrong with this here. And so, before the discourse machine starts, producing mythology in both directions, we should get the history right here. Mamdani is not even the guy who invented this program, right? So if you were under that misapprehension here, that's actually not the case. And the summer youth program has existed for decades now, more than 6 decades, actually, more than 60 years. And it's older than most of the politicians that are currently attempting to take credit for it. The expansion of 100,000 jobs, didn't even begin under Mamdani as well. It actually began under Eric Adams back in 2022. And they've maintained roughly the same scale ever since for several summers. And so, no, Mamdani didn't wake up one morning, right, and end up, putting the red flag over City Hall and, inventing this teenage summer jobs program, nor is he taking all the credit for it here. But what he's doing is, again, expanding that program, as much as he can, and then preserving that initial expansion over the 100,000 jobs. So, that distinction matters here, because you don't want people just taking credit for no reason, of course. And, so it's not just him, right? He's doing a lot of great things, but it's not just him doing this. Again, Eric Adams is the guy who got it to the 100K in the first place here. But to me, this connects New Yorkers between the ages of 14 and 24 with those 6 weeks of paid employment, and career exploration, that project-based learning, that workplace experience that they might not get anywhere else. I mean, we're talking about a country who's going through its worst job crisis since the Great Depression. And, I can, personally attest to that too. I mean, not only, and for young people, I think it's particularly bad. I think if you're a middle-aged adult, that's probably the sweet spot. But, if you're a young person here, I mean, not only are you competing with countless amounts of people for no jobs, some of the jobs are even ghost jobs. They don't even exist. I think it's like 1 out of 10 to 2 out of 10 jobs now, they're just ghost jobs. They don't exist. They're fake. They're fugazi, it's a wazi, it's a woozy. It's not real. And then, these corporations, we need more experience, or blah, 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 blah. Everybody knows somebody, right? Nepotism is through the roof. It's absolutely insane. If you're not just going to, come in with some little nepotistic connection, I mean, the chance that you get a job is almost zero. But then, you're competing for those ghost jobs, which don't even exist in the first place. You got the nepotism jobs. And in addition to that, you also got to fight ageism too, because people don't trust young people. They don't care about young people. I mean, if they actually didn't, they did what they expressed, then they might be willing to take a chance on young people. But that's just essentially not how it works. And so, I think this is a great thing. It's not a source of money. This is something that's also transitioning people into the workforce and getting them some of that experience, which everybody likes to praise, right? It's always like, how about people go into the trades, or, how about people, actually pick up and do some manual labor for a living, or how about they get some experience doing this and that, back in my day, we used to blah, 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 blah. It's like, okay, well, now you're going to give people, the next generation, the opportunity to do that for, again, almost not 6 weeks, I think you'll live. And like all of a sudden people are upset. It actually blows my mind. It's like, what else would you rather have the kids be doing? But these are foundational skills, and I think that we should be promoting them. And call me crazy, for saying that, but that's essentially how I feel. So, with that said, guys, a little bit of a background there with Mamdani kicking off that summer jobs program. So, hopefully you guys did enjoy the video here. Again, I've been trying a little new format here. Got like some of a semi-script here with some nice little quips and whatnot. But let me know how you guys like that. If you do like it, I'll continue going there. If not, we'll just start writing and raving off the top. But with that said, guys, thank you so much for watching here. My name's Dr. Ian Phillips, and we'll talk to you later. Peace.